it's your boy Luke. Tomorrow night we get a 13-fight UFC card, a lot of exciting banger matches as well, but most of all some Draftkings contests to try and take down as well. The headliner fight on the main card is going to be Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann going at it, going to be a gritty matchup, and there's quite a few other matchups I have my eye on as well. What we're going to do in this video though is we're going to cover my top 6 fighters to target for Draftkings MMA contests. These are going to be the fighters that have the highest potential to go out, get a finish, get you a ton of points on DFS, and try to take down a GPP, that sort of thing. So with that being said, let's hop into the picks for this weekend's card. Kicking off the fighters to target, we have Montel Jackson fighting against JP Buys this weekend. He's going to cost $9,500, which is far from cheap, we know that, but I have him projected for 90 points, which is really solid. I believe he has a very high floor in this matchup, and he has over a 70% finish rate in his career, so definitely has shown that upside, but he comes in with the second best odds on the entire slate to win. Very solid in terms of that floor for that reason, is minus 300 to win. He goes against somebody, JP Buys, who went down very early for a knockout, somebody who's shown a weak chin in the past. And on the other side of the equation, we have Montel Jackson, who has some of the best power in the entire division. We've seen it time and time again. So in this matchup, I really like his chances to go out, get a first round knockout over JP Buys. But at the very least, he's one of the biggest favorites on the entire slate, has shown that power in the past, plenty of knockdowns, plenty of volume with his punches as well. So somebody who I really like in GPP formats, just don't love the price. So that's why he comes in at number 6, still a very solid target. At number 5, we have a first underdog of our picks here. It's going to be Devin Clark, somebody who's fighting Ion Cutelaba, somebody I've actually backed here on the channel in the past, but I like the Clark side of things, especially at $7,200. I have him projected for 82.5 fantasy points. He finishes just 33% of his fights, but he's a very gritty fighter. So I think the line of this fight is just outright wrong. Cutelaba has lost 3 straight fights coming into this bout, and Devin Clark, who's fought the best people in this entire division, hardly ever gets knocked down, yet alone knocked out. So somebody who's very gritty, like I said, it's not going to go down without a fight. And again, Cutelaba has some insane power. We've seen it especially early on in his UFC career, but we haven't seen that for over 3 fights. Again, 3 losses in a row, hasn't even wobbled any of his opponents. So I'm taking the Clark side of things here. I like the momentum for Clark coming in. I even like the experience factor over somebody like Cutelaba, who I think gets a little bit more experience knock than he actually has in the UFC, only 6 fights to his record. At number 4, we have Tafon Nchukwi at $8,800. I really like the matchup against Mike Rodriguez. Both of them relatively slow fighters. Not people who are going to give you a ton of output, but at 81.5 projected points, I really like his chances to get a finish over Mike Rodriguez. Again, it's not going to be very high volume, but both fighters have very strong power. Pretty much one punch KO power on each side of this fight. They can put you to sleep with any of their punches, any of their techniques as well. It's not even going to take a haymaker. And Nchukwi is typically at a disadvantage with his speed, but in this fight against Mike Rodriguez, I think he's actually going to have the upper hand there. So I imagine he's going to go out, piece up Mike Rodriguez on the feet, and get a finish probably in the 2nd or 3rd round. But on top of that, the reason why I really like Tafon this week is because he has a very high floor, in my opinion. Somebody who has wrestling in his back pocket. If he ends up getting pieced up by Mike Rodriguez, let's say we're wrong about the speed advantage. Rodriguez goes out with a very strong camp, that sort of thing. And Nchukwi can just take him down, can score some rounds that way, score some fantasy points as well by keeping some control time. So I really like the floor there, especially with the upside of a legit 1st or 2nd round knockout finish. At number 3, we have Mandy Bohm. So she's $8,000 fighting against Ariane Lipski, and I have her projected for just 80 fantasy points. But at $8,000, that's a relatively good value. She has finished 58% of her fights in her career, and she's a UFC newcomer, somebody who's fighting for her very first time, and gets a solid matchup against Ariane Lipski. That should tell you that they really believe in Bohm as a prospect. They're not just giving her a very easy matchup for first time out. Really want to see her tested, and if she goes out and passes this test, we'll be on a path to that top 5 in the division, as Lipski's already ranked. So if we take a look at Bohm in the way that she fights, she's very well rounded, has bested her opponents pretty much no matter where the fight goes, has finishes by KO, submission, all of her record, and all of the different organizations that she's fought in as well. So has shown a lot of potential in a very well-rounded skill set. She also possesses a good matchup in terms of volume. So she's somebody who's, not afraid of going out there and brawling. And then Lipski, on the other side, is willing to do that as well. So we're going to get a very high-scoring affair here. Both fighters like to brawl, like to go out there and use high volume. I like the Bohm side of things, especially because she's this new unknown prospect, right? The line on this fight's incredibly close. Has actually started to move towards Mandy Bohm. So a lot of the sharps in the division have shown that kind of confidence behind her. And they wouldn't have brought her against somebody like Lipsky unless they believed in her, right? They don't just take people onto the chopping block the first time out. Typically, when they give somebody a good opponent, it's because it's well warranted. So I like taking the cheaper side of things here, but I think that whoever wins this fight is going to definitely end up in the optimal lineup. So I'm not completely fading Ariane Lipsky this week. I think she also is very live in this fight. Obviously has some power for that women's division right there. But I'm definitely leaning a lot more towards Mandy Bohm. At number 2, we have Ryan Spann. So that's who I'm taking there in the main event. He's only $7,100, which has a huge deal with this. And I have projected for 92 fantasy points. So pretty whopping score right there. Somebody who does a lot of his scoring with his wrestling, which is very good for DraftKings scoring specifically. But he has an 84% finishing rate over his career. You like to see that as well. And I'm on this side of the event because of that wrestling ability, right? Somebody who can go out, control the fight, can take the fight down to the mat and control where the fights happen, right? Anthony Smith, someone who's very well-rounded, loves to brawl, loves to get into those wars. Ryan Spann can avoid that by just taking him down. So I expect this to be a lot more of a grappling match than what the fans really want to see. I think it's actually going to be a little bit disappointing, to be quite honest with you. There's going to be a lot of clinch work from somebody like Spann. There'll be a lot of takedowns, things like that. But I do think that Spann has a good chance to end up with a finish here. Anthony Smith obviously getting older in age. We've seen the cardio slightly start to go down over time. I mean, he's still one of the best cardio guys in the entire division, but nowhere near what he used to be, where he was going out there throwing 200 punches every fight, just taking everything, and looked just as fast in the 5th round as he did in the 3rd. So this is a 5-round fight. I'm going with the younger fighter. And even though we haven't seen Spann in 5-round fights, he's training in altitude right now, somebody who knows he's going to have to go 5 rounds with Anthony Smith likely to beat him. Knockout, the finish definitely is on the table, like I mentioned, but more than likely this goes 5 rounds. Ryan Spann wins in the decision fashion, has 6 or 7 takedowns, 5 or 6 minutes at least of control time, and that would be a massive score on DraftKings. So I really like Spann in that main event. Anthony Smith's also a little bit expensive for my liking. He's up there in the high $8,000 range. I kind of question his upside in this fight, just given Ryan Spann's durability that we've seen, and also just his cardio, right? Somebody who's a lot younger than Anthony Smith. But at number 1, this is a slam dunk pick. I think a lot of you knew this pick was coming. This is Joaquin Buckley. He's $9,300 fighting against Antonio Arroyo. I have him projected for 97.5 points, and that's going to be low, to be honest with you. He finishes 75% of his fights, 3 of 4 in the UFC. He's my number 1 target for this week because he's in line for another highlight reel finish. So we saw him go out with the spinning heel kick, captivated the entire fighting world, not just the UFC world. Went out against Jordan Wright, knocked his ass out cold too, has that kind of power, and now he gets another cupcake opponent. I think the UFC just wants him to go out, have these highlight reel finishes. They don't really care if he's actually a good UFC fighter, but he just has this power that no one else in the division has, right? So he can go out there, he can end a fight in 1 punch. Unfortunately, we saw that he can also get knocked out with 1 punch, right? He has kind of a weak chin, so that could be a little bit of a problem, except that Arroyo has no power at all. He's somebody, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, I don't really think has knockout power for the UFC. On the other hand, you have a once-in-a-generation type talent, right? So Joaquin Buckley is slam dunk play for me this week. I will have him in every single lineup. I think he has a very good chance to get that first minute knockout, that extra 30-point bonus that you can get. You can end up putting 135 points up in the first round, and that's what we're looking for with Buckley. All we've got for the UFC preview. Let me know in the comments who your favorite fighter the target on the card is. I'd love to hear why. Let's get some debate down there. Maybe it's one of the guys I chose. Joaquin Buckley seems like a good choice to me, but perhaps Ryan Spann. Maybe it's even Anthony Smith. You think he comes through with that first round knockout for the 3rd time in a row? Let me know in the comments. As always, I appreciate the viewership and support. If you guys haven't liked and subscribed to the channel already, make sure you guys do so. And until next time, see you guys, and good luck with all of your lineups this weekend.